Yes.
So I want to, as we begin to think about closing, I wanted to share a few things from the critical thinking therapy book that I'm working on which you mentioned, Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a section, of course, on intellectual virtues, and I'm focusing in this section on intellectual cowardice, the opposite of intellectual courage, with a little bit of a description of what this means. And we've already talked quite a bit about that. But here are some questions, many of them, which again, we've already touched upon, which may be helpful to those joining us. Here are some questions we can ask when we're trying to develop intellectual courage and get beyond or go away from intellectual cowardice. I'll just read some of these. What beliefs are you afraid of examining? So anyone who's listening can write down the answer. What belief, just write down one belief you're afraid of examining. And you could just say, well, you might say, I don't know what you mean by that. Then I can say, what part of your life are you afraid of examining? Quite easy. Then what keeps you from honestly doing so? What precisely are you afraid of as you consider exploring and questioning any part of your beliefs? If you scrutinize your marriage, might you see something you would prefer not to see? If you examine your parenting patterns and habits, will you see something about your parenting that upsets you? If you ponder your career path, what might you have to face? If you review what you said in the last argument you had with someone, what might you discover about yourself that you need to face and change? What pain and suffering do you experience because you're unwilling to examine some beliefs you've been harboring? So let's take a person who's not happy in the marriage that they're in, and the person is unwilling to examine their beliefs, and therefore they're suffering. So holding on to your beliefs can cause you to suffer a lot more than changing your beliefs will. But it seems like it's the other way around very often. When we're thinking egocentrically, I'm locked into these beliefs. Yes, he's got this problem and this bothers me about him and that bothers me about him, and I don't like this and I don't like that, but, and yeah, that caused me pain and suffering, but it's comfortable enough to me now. Well, I'm comfortable being in pain and suffering.
Yeah.
So when we are thinking egocentrically, you see, we want to hold on to those beliefs, even though they cause us pain.
Indeed, yeah.
And we'd rather have that form of pain than the form of pain that is required for changing the beliefs.
Right.
Seems very strange. So you don't mind suffering this kind of pain, but that kind of pain you want to avoid. But that's natural.
Right. And that's related to that old saying, you prefer the devil that you know to the devil that you don't know.
Exactly. And that's where that comes from.
Right. The assumption that both of them are devils, for instance, is implicit in that. Right.
A couple of more questions. What pain and suffering do you cause others because you're unwilling to reconsider your beliefs?
Right.
So let's say a person who's harsh as a parent, and the child says, you know, Mom, you're being really hard on me. You're being rude to me. And the parent says something rude back.
Right.
Because she's not able to examine her own beliefs.
Right. Right.
What pain and suffering do you cause others because you're so locked into your beliefs? You're forcing them on other people.
Yeah.
You are at your, have to serve at your will, so to speak, as children do so often. Why have you determined that refusing to reflect on your beliefs is worth these harms done to yourself and others? What about the current version of yourself is so beneficial that it outweighs the damage you're doing to yourself?
Right.
Can you
Mhm.
think of times when, despite your fears and concerns, you nevertheless spoke up about your views and positive consequences resulted from your courage? That's
Mhm.
the example that you gave. Because
Right.
later your dean said, I'm really glad you did that.
Right. Yeah.
What stops you from doing this? Is it fear of rejection? Is it fear you may have to face your wrong? Is it the need to always be right in every situation?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So these are just some questions we can ask as we try to develop intellectual courage.